So welcome to the Powerful Panels podcast. This is Kristin Arnold, and I am a professional panel moderator on a quest to make all panels lively and informative. And today, I'm so excited. We have, quote, hashtag best panel ever. Two moderators who moderated a panel on a Sunday morning, bright and early at the National Speakers Association convention. And you should have seen the chat box. It was blowing up like best panel ever. So I'd love to introduce the panel moderators to the podcast. And just if you could tell us, why did you think that this panel was so exceptional? So John Petz, we're going to start with you because you are a master MC and an amazing panel moderator. And thank you for joining us on Powerful Panels. Tell us a little bit about the NSA panel.
It was a great, Powerful Panels. It'll be fun to share this.
Yeah.
The panel was unique in that it was, we didn't even call it a panel, we called it a battle. So it was a debating style panel, which had some controversial issues that were known ahead of time in terms of how to build a particular piece of the business. So we put them head to head to try to create these, adversaries to have people really see the pros and cons of each different aspect of the business. So that was the general theme.
Very good. So thank you, John. And Pam Leinmiller, you are also an amazing professional moderator, facilitator, trainer. Tell us a little bit about why you thought that panel was so exceptional.
I thought the panel was exceptional because we had whistles and we had yellow cards and we had red cards. And I haven't ever seen a panel with any of those before. And that made it really fun for one. Number two was it was unpredictable. It wasn't so scripted. We had questions ahead of time that we were going to ask. We did not get to all those, by the way. I thought we'd run out, but we did not. However, the spontaneity of it is, I think, what was really fun. John and I, first of all, were having a blast, weren't we, John? It was just so much fun. And we started out the day introducing it and saying, hey, I'm so excited because everyone loves a panel discussion on the last morning on Sunday of the conference.
Said no one ever.
And John said no one ever. We had a few people in the audience who were trying to be supportive when I said that. And John said no one ever.
So Pam, let's set the table here. So there were people in a live audience on a Sunday morning at round tables. You had like maybe 2 people per round of 3 people.
3.
So a total of how many people in the room?
Oh, by Sunday morning, I mean, we were less than 30, right?
2 audiences, which makes
the majority of the audience was.
Yeah, which makes our job a little bit more difficult. So tell us a little bit about, and this panel was an hour, right?
Yes.
1 hour. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the genesis of the panel. How did it come on the program? And how did the format come together?
Let's talk about that, because during our pre-production call about this panel, we had all 4 panelists. We were all remote at that point, talking about how we were going to structure this, what our needs were. And we were trying to brainstorm because it became known, I didn't realize this, I don't think John did either, that one of our panelists was going to be virtual and not live in the ballroom. 3 of them were going to be with us, and then 1 was going to be virtual. So the conversation, how are we going to do this? Well, first of all, somebody that ended up being a panelist, Barry Banther, was thinking he was going to be moderating. But as the conversation went, it was clear he needed to be on the panel. So we got that figured out. But then we were trying to figure out, brainstorming how to have this one person remote, but the rest of them, you can't have 3 guys on a stage and 1 woman virtual. And so then there was an idea, well, let's put one of the guys up in their room. So then we'll have 2 people remote. I didn't like that idea. But the whole time we're bantering, John Petz's brain was—
Unintended.
Yeah, unintended. Yeah, that was intended. The whole time we were doing that, John Petz was, cooking up ideas. So John.
No, I'll jump in. I think there's 2 folds of it. One, And this is depending on who your audience is. If it, from the event professional standpoint, you have our client who's saying, listen, we're going to do an hour panel and it's going to be this normal one person going to moderate. I'm like, listen, in a virtual, even a hybrid realm, that doesn't work the way it used to unless it's tightly rehearsed, every camera angle, and it's scripted. I'm like, it can't play that way. So I think Pam and I both pushed back and said, no, we have to do something differently. Then we learned one's going to be virtual. So I came up with like, what if we just create literally 3 sets within the room so they can all see each other, but at least the audience sees it from the continuity factor. So they would appear on the screen at the same time. We could have 4 pips, as we could say, on the screen, and create the audience in the middle of this dynamic. So the audience physically could take part, looking every which way. And in a sense, we wanted them to side with different people and get up and move. But because of environmental conditions, we really wanted people congregating. But we could create this energy and this vibe, and as I call it, like this battle, where we could have people in a playful way going at each other saying, no, I don't think your way works. It works this way. The way it turned out was just truly spectacular, as we talked about. But that's how it all, I guess, in terms of how it came to fruition, that's how it came to fruition.
Cool. Okay. So there's a couple of things that I love about what you guys were saying is, number one, you pushed back to the traditional way of looking at it, because especially in a hybrid world, you can't just replicate what you do in the face-to-face world. Okay. So number two, I thought it was interesting that Barry Banther, who is the chair of the board of the National Speakers Association this year, was supposed to moderate this. And it became evident that he shouldn't. Now, what was the reason why?
Well, as we were talking, I think that he's got a wealth of experience and knowledge and all of that. So I think I'm the one that brought it up. John and I were kind of thinking that way because we didn't want that old traditional 1 moderator and 3 panelists idea. Plus, Barry has a lot to bring to the table to participate and knowledge and experience and all of that. So during our brainstorming process, I just said, when Barry finished saying something that was full of wisdom, of course, I just said, Barry, I know you're supposed to moderate this, but I feel like you should be on the panel. And there was silence for a second, but then he agreed, didn't he, John? He was like, okay, I'm fine. I'll be on the panel. And that freed up John and I then to get creative about how to moderate the panel. So then we started talking about that part.
I think that this is a really powerful point, is that when you have somebody who's a real deep expert, and Barry Banther is one of the smartest people on the planet, gotta tell you. And to have him with his hands tied, trying to moderate a panel when the moderator is serving the audience by teeing up really provocative questions, it's kind of like, but I want to say something, And we've all seen the moderators who have had tons of expertise and became a panelist by default. So kudos to you for like pushing back on that one. And I love this battle theme. So the battle theme then drove the format of the cards and the whistle. And Pam, you came out in a referee shirt.
I did. Well, John had the idea about the battle, and I'm a huge sports fan. So I said, hey, why don't we like have some football flags? So I was thinking we need to have some penalties here for talk. I was thinking initially, talking too long, getting off topic, not getting to the cash. And in the spontaneity of what happened, that is not what the penalties were for. But that was my original idea. My girls both played soccer, and I went and bought a soccer referee uniform, and I got a whistle, and I got some cards and put them in my pocket. And I thought, we will just play this. And in addition to that, John and I really promoted it ahead of time as we were teasing throughout the weekend. Like, you don't know what's coming on Sunday morning. Don't miss it. Right, John?
We did. We seasoned throughout, which was great. Worked well.
The battle. Now, John, tell us a little bit about the preparation, because these guys came in ready to challenge each other and to talk. So I call this the conversational drumbeat. Like, they were primed, which is hard to do on a Sunday morning, first thing. So how did you help them along, or was it just their natural personalities, the selection of the panelists? Tell us.
Well, 2 answers in there. So yes, somewhat selection of panelists, and consider the audience and these presenters themselves. If you did this with a people who are maybe not comfortable presenting to a group of people, it could have been a greatly different result. So these participants are all professional speakers. We're all into the fact that they knew they would have someone debating them on the issue and playfully went at that. The other answer would be the format and the structure. We wanted the spontaneous, element of it. However, I was adamant about the actual structure in terms of, listen, we'll have our opening statement, no one will interrupt you in terms of a debate. Then we're going to have this style of question where we can debate and then solve business problems. And some of that was come up literally the day before, but having it open to their creativity, yet really firmly structure on how we're going to play that was essential.
Okay, so I'm very curious about this one. The tee up to the audience was, okay, we've got 4 different panelists. They're in 4 parts of the room. We do have one remote panelist who, in my little brain, because I'm watching it virtually, I'm thinking, oh, that panelist is also in the room, but being broadcasted in her corner. I don't know if that's true or not.
You had no idea, right? No one knew.
I had no idea.
That was the whole point, and that was the genius of John's setup.
But I'm assuming that there was a monitor that had her face in that 4th corner of the room. Is that true?
There was not in the room, but it was on the jumbo. They're the big IMAX.
So they just didn't move the jumbo. Okay.
Yep.
That was her corner then. Was the jumbo room, right? So these guys are like looking at each other, and it started with Pam setting it up and then saying introductory remarks. And I think you actually gave them a time limit.
30 seconds, I think John said,
30 seconds.
So they didn't go on.
And they all came in on time. I think Pam was ready with her yellow card. Like, okay, I'm holding it, which is a great visual reminder to your panelists, right? And then you started with a question. But the bantering was already going on. So tell us about this playful aspect. John, you alluded to that, that there was this playful aspect. Did they just bring that because of their speakership? But I don't think so, because I've seen speaker panels and some of them are not this.
Well, and you're talking about the banter among participants, and there was also kind of Pam and I. And there's one thing you didn't see that really
yes,
helped that I'll dig into. Or Pam, you want to start or no?
Are you talking about you running around?
Yes, I was told. Here's what you didn't see.
What you didn't see on camera was, because I was on stage with John until I wasn't. And then John, I was up there. Yeah, he took the iPad, which had the chat from the virtual group, and he started running around the room, and he had his mask on, and he, signs started going up behind panelists, and he was kind of like planting seeds with each of them about different things. I don't even know what was going on out there, but
I was
energy was up because John was up, like out there with the audience and with the 3 panelists that were in the ballroom with us, because they could see each other, but they were on opposite walls of the ballroom. So think about that. It wasn't like they were looking at each other in the eyes.
So John, what were you doing running around stoking the fire? I mean, literally, what were you doing?
I was literally stoking the fire. Like, for an example of the signs Pam mentioned, if they didn't see it. So when one of our first panelists came up, he's got a Roll Tide, which is an Alabama reference, right, from Alabama. And so I start getting pieces of paper so people can write back stuff and start posting. And it's just, this is, gaff tape stuck on the wall, ugly as can be, but very effective, giving them markers and now other signs they're picking on each other in that fashion. And then even letting folks know, hey, he's going to come at you. Here's what I wanted you to come back with, and we're going to yellow card him. It's kind of like all the stinking reality shows. It's all scripted, right?
No, you didn't script this, but you produced it. It was a live production.
It was.
I was helping to make it fun, funny, and engaging in the back end. I was just running around the room, giving them little things of what people are saying and what was going to come next.
So here's the other thing that I'm picking up on this one. And I think that this is a really important note, especially for hybrids, is you were moderating this for the virtual audience, not for the live audience. Is that a fair statement to say, Pam?
I think it was really for both. I mean, because the live audience was watching John run around, and he was talking to them while he was doing that. And they're like, oh my gosh, what's coming up next? Like they could see the activity and were wondering what in the heck he was doing. And I thought that just added to their energy and fun. And plus they could look from wall to wall, from person to person to watch. They could look on the big screen and see all four of them like the virtual audience did, but they could also look at the person and see what was happening because they were set up, with their own chair and camera and laptop, with the Zoom link and just like that. So I think that was all a part of the fun of it too. That part was all spontaneous.
John, would you have really been running around like that in a live panel like that?
If every panelist was on stage, of course not a chance. No, nor would I have that opportunity off camera to kind of behind the scenes, do what I wanted to do and accomplish.
Right. Yeah. He did show up on stage once in a while with the iPad, like he was actually doing that the whole time. For the virtual audience thought that, but in reality, I almost laughed out loud when he'd show up and look at me like he'd been there the whole time. I'm thinking. And
you would look at and you're kind of like under your breath, like, what are you doing? I'm like, just go with it. Just come on.
But that was going on through the entire event. Like people would just disappear and
yeah, it was fun.
But anyway, so tell us a little bit about the iPad and how you were interacting with the audience during the panel.
I had it most of the time. I know, Pam, you had it some too. It's the chat functionality. We wanted to address questions, follow-on questions to things they had said. And the argument for everyone's just point of reference was how to build a training, coaching, or consulting business. And everyone had a different idea on the best way to do it, with the outcome being there is no best way. Yeah. This is how you can pick your own way. So the chat was follow-up questions related to it. And just there were a couple questions that we got that we addressed publicly with everyone. So it was mainly
so you had your list of what I call moderator curated questions.
Yep.
More than you could use. Mm-hmm. And you use the chat box to fill in, ask deeper questions. Yeah. Let's talk about the selection of the panelists, because if everybody was saying, yep, that's how you build a training and coaching and consulting business, that's a boring panel. So I'm assuming you didn't have that much discretion over who was on the panel, but how did you tease out their different opinions?
Yeah, the panel was pre-picked, but John, wouldn't you agree that was all in our production call? And actually, the day before, when we did a little bit of a run through just to make sure all the technology, was set up, we could get the 4 people on screen. We made sure that our production people behind us with all of the video stuff were ready to go with Video West and all of that. So I think that, John, it was after the first question, it was all in the setup, but even after the first question, John said, well, who thinks that's the first answer? John was like, who thinks that's BS? And he looked around. One of the other panelists like, I do, he jumped in. What do you think, John?
I think the key there was knowing ahead of time when we asked this question, I have 2 pros and I have 2 cons and I know where they're coming from in a sense. So it wasn't like, hey, ask this question and we have 4 people for it. Yeah. So again, we didn't know what all they were going to say, but wanted to make sure from a structure format standpoint, we had 2 sides of an issue each time.
Okay, great. So each of those questions, you knew that there was differences of opinions.
Exactly.
Excellent. So let's talk technology. Yay! You had no control over the platform. And at this point, you were comfortable enough, I'm assuming, with the technology. The participants were comfortable enough with the technology. Tell us, were there any specific considerations or requirements that you asked the video crew about, like when do you mute mics and things like that?
Wow. I always ask for something that the A1, A2 audio engineers are not comfortable with, which I ask for full control of my microphone. Leave me open and I will mute it, which I do. That's my normal course of business. So from the tech standpoint of audio, video, they're actually, and Robert on the back end is who was queuing the video. We couldn't tell them who was going to speak and for how long. So we had to give them creative control of taking the right camera angle at the right time of going full screen. And then when it was, the 4-person shot, and then Pam and I as the 5th pit. So we gave them creative control.
Okay, so they had 3 sets, individual, all 4 panelists, and then just the 2 of you. And you gave them full control. What about the microphones for the panelists?
They were always on, I think. They were always on. Yep.
So
Except for the one time when.
So when you're running from person to person, John, aren't you kind of concerned that they're going to hear what you're saying?
I was passing notes. I mean, I mic off and I go up there and I'm looking at the live program feed, and I know when they're off camera. So at least I know when they're off camera, their mic isn't, well, I guess their mic kills to pick up, but I'm whispering. I was careful.
Oh, okay. And you are talking about professional speakers that probably also know that they need to mute their microphone, which many moderators might not have that kind of experience. Crew, either an AV crew or their panelists. Pam, what?
Except for me up on stage, because I had my mic, too much information, but I like my mic pack connected to my bra strap. So it was just on. And John would come up and talk to me on stage, and I started answering him, forgetting that I'm on the whole time. So at one point, I think John was there. Pam, just keep looking forward. I'm going to talk to you, but don't answer it. Don't answer me. At which point I just almost started cracking up. So we had all that going on as well, which just added to, the fun and frivolity of it all.
Absolutely. Okay. So this brings up an interesting point, because many panels are moderated by one person. Tell us a little bit about the relationship, the connection that the two of you, how did you work together? How did you make agreements about who's going to do what?
I'll start on this one, Pam, and you can add in after me. This was the culmination of the third day of the conference. And before the live hybrid piece of the conference, there was 10 warm-up virtual series. I had never met Pam before any of this. And she can attest to the fact that I had a learning curve. I have never co-hosted with someone. I have controlled my content, my show. So the learning curve through the 10 virtual warm-up series to the first day, the second day, I think made this third segment really effective and possible, because she knew where my brain was going. And when I just disappeared, she ran with it. I was comfortable that I could do that. So
that was not comfortable the first time you ever did that, John. Because as a participant, you kind of watched the growth of your relationship and the comfort level and the camaraderie. So I think for me, the learning point is, when you're co-moderating with somebody, you need to spend a little bit of time with them. And I don't know what else you could do other than maybe try moderating a couple of panels, spending some time talking about what if scenarios, having a drink at the bar might not hurt,
All good.
Dan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was a time of growth and just trying to figure each other out. One of our introductions, the voiceover, and John gave the sound guy credit, but I actually wrote it, that when they were introducing me, that I was the yin to John Petz yang. But I really think that was true. He was laughing about it, but it was really true. Like, we complemented each other in how we work together. And I think that's part of what made it work too. But when he first left stage, you're right, Kristin, because we were going to be alternating and sharing the questioning, and we had a list of, we're going to add, who we were going to ask what questions of. We let them know what we were going to be asking. We said, what question do you want us to ask you in our prep time and all that? And then, after we got started, he left. He left stage.
I knew you were fine.
Okay,
totally fine. You had the whistle. You had the cards.
I know.
Okay, so the other thing is that everybody was having fun, and part of it is the NSA spirit, our sense of community. I get that, but I think that when you're having fun, the audience can have fun, and especially the virtual audience can have fun. So let's take a look at the actual panel. Did it go the way that you had, quote unquote, planned it? And were there any surprises?
I think it went as good or better than planned. Big surprises.
Good, it went better than planned.
Well, I mean,
it did, actually.
There was no rehearsal. I mean, you know how live events go. It was everyone met there the day before for a tech rehearsal. We made sure the cameras were there. And we confirmed the questions, confirmed the pros, confirmed all that, the basic logistical stuff. Surprises?
I have one. I have two.
The signs in the back. I think adding that vision
that was
playfulness, that was a surprise. And I just kept building it, make that one more element of it. Yeah.
Two things there. I thought that I would be, and I set it up. Look, we're gonna be calling you if you talk too long. Like, we need to have efficient answers. We were going to enforce that. That was one of the things, and get into the cash, like get to the bottom line. They really did a good job with that. The thing that was unexpected was Barry Banther started with his Alabama, and going on about that. That was my first whistle, and I thought, okay, well then somebody's going to go. No, people were so efficient with their answers, and it turned into, every time Barry Banther started talking about something off topic, which was Alabama or puppies or whatever, that was where the whistle came. It was never what I thought it was going to be. And I don't know, John, either, as we talked about ahead of time, if they go long, we're going to call them. And so that was unexpected. But then another thing, Kristin, that John did, since Barry and the Alabama theme started early on, John had this idea to get the sound guys to play the Alabama fight song. And I gave him my red card. And that's when I blew the whistle and he red carded Barry. That was totally spontaneous. Yeah.
So you ran over to the AV team.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, man, I need this track. You got to find this Alabama fight. What's it sound like? I don't know. Just play it.
And then he came and got my red card off stage. And
And then I went to one of our panelists and said, listen, I need you to jab him one more time. When you jab him, they're going to play the fight song. Hold on, come in, because I got to get the red. I was putting the pieces in place to set up that little bit.
Setting it all up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. Everybody laughed, and that was the goal. Everybody was having fun. The energy in the room live was just great. It was great.
Yeah, and I also think, and you were watching, Chris, the content was legit, real, buildable business content.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where I wanted to go next, which is, you said that you gave them some preparation and some coaching saying, be concise, make it about takeaways, and they actually followed your ideas. Is there any time that you had to rein anybody in or kind of remind them, so what's your takeaway?
Pam, that's you. That's on my brain, no.
Yeah, no, I really don't think so, Kristin. And that's the great thing about working with NSA professional speakers, CSPs, they are good and they're successful. And no, they're good, they're successful, they know their stuff, and they delivered it. They were honest and they were really direct in helping.
So let's put on the non-NSA hat.
Yeah.
If you were doing this with another group, Pam, you do a lot of stuff in the medical world. John, you're all over the place. You're an amazing MC for like associations and corporations and like all kinds of traditional and non-traditional organizations, right? If you had to do this with somebody a group of panelists who were not as eloquent, how would you herd the cats?
I'm in that process right now, major tech firm. And I'm sharing the idea. They're into the idea, but we have to make sure they're comfortable battling each other in a playful way. They're more on the engineering side. So the setup there would be, again, confirming what sides of the issues we're on. Can we find middle ground? And can we find valuable content on the pros and cons of each issue? So that's, I think, the foremost way of setting it up initially, to then make a decision. Okay, we can make it playful. But that content, format, strategy, outcome has to come first.
So what kind of battle theme are they doing? Are they doing like worldwide wrestling, football, rugby?
It's the top 200 leaders of an organization that everyone would know, but it's what leadership skills are most important for this organization to succeed. And it's going to be, no, it's this. I think it's this. I think it's, yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, I just washed my shirt and where do you need me to be and when, John? Ready to roll.
Okay. So anything that you thought that we would cover that we haven't covered that you want to talk about? Because I have a final question for you. 2 final questions.
No, you're exceptional. You do, and you covered the topic brilliantly.
Good.
Thank you. Okay. So here's my final 2 questions. Because I think every panel, even though you're hashtag best panel ever.
I like that.
Which, by the way, I wrote that in the chat box.
Thank you. And coming from you, that's even better. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I saw it a lot and then I put the hashtag. So, hey, I'm very creative that way. What's the one thing, because I think all panels can be better. Like you're going to do this, some kind of version of it again, John, Pam, probably you will. I'm going to like blog about this and riff on it as well. What would be the one thing that you as the moderator would do differently? Pam, go for it first.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't talk to John, my co-moderator, my co-battle host, while my mic is on, as he's spontaneously running around the room and then telling me what the plan is. I wouldn't answer him. That's probably the first thing. I don't know. I haven't even watched the whole thing back. So it's hard for me. I need to watch it back to see from an observation point of view. But in it, while we were doing it, I think all the boxes were ticked. You know, we saw the audience having a great time. John was reading through the chat and just laughing out loud and then reading some of those. You guys were having a blast. The panelists were smiling and having fun. And the hour went by like that. It wasn't like we were trying to fill the time. We ran out of time to ask all the questions that we had planned to ask, but there was great content. I don't know that without watching it back and with a critical eye, other than not talking while the mic is on, I think that's the only thing I would do differently right now.
John.
Two things. What I wanted to say is, even when I build something that I want, it's really structured, but I think the lack of structure added to the spontaneity, made it better. So I want to go against what I initially would want to have said about more planned rehearsal structure, because that worked that it didn't. Mm-hmm. The other element I would say, we had restrictions of whenever people are listening to this on distancing and where people could be. Yeah. I still would have loved the idea of getting the in-house participants more involved, and if they sided with one person, going over by then and getting involved and even more building up that hype and encouragement. But we couldn't at this point in time, but that will come. Yes, and when we do it again, I would like to get even more energy and excitement from the in-house folks.
Yeah. Excellent.
I agree, John. We got nixed on that just because of our restrictions with the pandemic, but that is definitely, you're right. That's definitely a future thing.
Yeah. So I love the idea of getting the live audience engaged as well as the virtual audience. And John, you're bringing up a really good point about planning and preparation. When is too much? Yeah. And when you start feeling like we're already having the panel discussion in our preparation, that's the time when it's a little too much. Even in our preparation for this, we started talking and I'm like, nope, save that, because you want that spontaneity.
Yeah. I think as if you're doing it with people that aren't professional speakers, like you were saying, Kristin, probably using some of your facilitation skills in there to help them get to the bottom line, or, some lines like, what's your one takeaway on this topic? Or in the interest of time, give me your bottom line and we're moving on to the next question, that kind of thing to help keep the flow going, because there's nothing that kills energy more than letting somebody drag the whole thing down with a 2-minute answer that's way too long.
You didn't have to do too much facilitation with this.
No, we did not.
Because of their area of expertise. And Pam, I also love what you said about the upgrades. I'd have to look at the video. And even though we all hate looking at videos of ourselves and like, do I really sound like that? Do I really look like that? Oh my God, did I have that poppy seed in my tooth? I can't believe. Like, it's so important that as professionals, we review our work and ask ourselves, like, so what went well? Kind of do a debrief. What would I do differently? How would I do this again? So thanks for bringing that up. Last question, and then we'll make it a wrap, is what's one thing you would have wanted the panelists to do differently?
The panelists
to do differently. Because our job is to deliver value to the audience, but it's also our secondary objective is really to make our panelists look brilliant. And they all look brilliant. But what's one thing that you would have done differently?
I would have liked for them to have the freedom to stand up and maybe get more physically involved in what they were saying. They had them sitting in a chair in front of the computer so they could get the Zoom square on the big screen and for the virtual audience. But I would love for that to have been maybe like a standing something where they would have naturally gotten more physically involved with what they were saying. I think would have made it even more fun.
Right. It's just like you look at the three of us, we're all standing.
We are.
Because we know that standing brings more energy.
Yeah.
John, what's your one thing that you would do differently?
That the panelists would do differently.
Yes.
I'm struggling for that right answer. And in all honesty, I mean, I didn't hear everything that Pam heard because I was doing 6 other things in the background. So I would really need to go back and watch that.
Yes.
So I don't know what most of them said. I don't have the content that they shared. But have a fight song from each of them so we could battle it out. Most of my thoughts.
Card to Barry Banther.
To the more production, the more graphic elements, and if we would have pre-planned stuff, we could have had pre-planned. But then it takes it. We have to produce a television show in this environment. We have to do that. So we could have gone there. We didn't, but that would have been a whole lot more work and exponential effort for a minor percentage upgrade in value.
Right.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing, John, is maybe a little bit more coordination with the AV crew. Now that you've been through it once, is a little bit more coordination with the AV crew about how to really leverage the talent of the panelists.
That's a good statement. Now, video and the team was fantastic. Worked with what we had.
Oh, absolutely.
But then it goes back to your comment. How much preparation is too much preparation? The reason that fight song worked and it was fun is because it just happened. We just made it happen. So and there's that line, and I don't know when we crossed the line of too much planning and spontaneity line.
Right. But I would bet the AV crew had no idea what you had in mind. Like they're going, panel, got that. Okay, they're going to be in 4 corners of the room. We've got a remote panelist. We've got 3 scenes. Easy peasy. It's good. And they're like, what?
Well, that even goes back to one of our very first meetings. We're talking about, okay, panelists. I'm like, you know what? How many cameras do you have? Because if you put 4 panelists even on a stage, you can't shoot it with one wide shot 6 feet apart. You can't. You get facial reactions. That's what I'm like, we needed 4 cameras. And then we found out one was virtual. I'm like, this has got to be completely different. It's not going to work. So
I love the creativity. Pam.
I just have one more comment about that. I think the whole audiovisual and what I wanted in the beginning was, even though one person was talking, I wanted all the panelists to be on the screen so that the audience could see the reactions of the other people, because they blew up the person that was talking big. That would be one thing I would recommend. Try to stay. It worked. But I think that so the live audience got to see a little bit more of that than the virtual audience because of the AV situation. But they did a great job.
As a watcher, I'm a watcher or like a participant, visual, whatever. I'm a remote participant. I like the fact that the squares kept moving.
Okay.
It kept me visually engaged, right?
Good.
So
Yeah.
I think, John, you're saying the whole creative license to the AV crew. You can't over prescribe it, but you can't under prescribe it.
Yeah.
And that line, anyone's guess.
It's like anything moderating a panel.
Yeah.
That line, I just got to say thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and expertise about the hashtag best panel ever. And may you have continued success with this format. And I hope that the listeners here, maybe you give it a try and let us know how it goes. For more information, you can go to www.powerfulpanels.com. You can subscribe to this podcast or to our YouTube channel. May all your panels be powerful. Thanks so much, John. Thanks so much, Pam.
Thanks, Kristin.
Pleasure. Thanks.